At some point, he was considered as the most respected Minesweeper player of all time. You might know him for being the player with the most Minesweeper world records, his dominant run as the fastest Minesweeper player, or his video of a world record he set a while back that has over 1.5 million views as of now. Kamil Murański is a person best described as a certified Minesweeper legend. His incredible scores were the inspiration for many players to start their journey into the Minesweeper rabbit hole after seeing videos like his former expert world record. For many years, Kamil was the unbeatable champion of Minesweeper, held in high regard due to his scores being light years ahead of others. His style of play and speed was something never seen before in the community, which left many analyzing his games for hours, examining the way he approached difficult sections and the way he had changed his playstyles during games between using flags and not using them at all. Recently, his behavior towards others in the community has left many with mixed feelings about him, and the reason for that can be traced back to the 12th of September 2020, when Kamil was finally defeated by a talented, up-and-coming, yet controversial player by the name of Zhe after spending over a decade on the top as the fastest Minesweeper player in the world. And as a little side note, I'll refer to Zhe as GZE for the rest of the video, since it's his most commonly used nickname. The game that made GZE beat Kamil was an expert game with a time of 29.43 seconds. It was an incredible 2.1 second improvement over his former personal best, and a 1.7 second improvement over Kamil's former world record. This change at the top had negatively affected Kamil. I mean, of course, he was the one being beaten, so a little bit of skepticism was expected, but after some time and even more world records and a lack of cooperation from JZE, the situation evolved into full-blown cheating accusations. It's worth mentioning that an interview in 2019 with a Chinese reporter, Kamil stated that if his record was broken by 3 seconds on a fluently played, extremely easy board, he would not come back to playing Minesweeper to get it back. Which here could be also understood as him being okay if a player beats him in the future on an easy board. And that is exactly what happened with JCE's game. It was a pretty easy board encountered by a talented player which was played very smoothly. You can also mention the fact that for a long period of time, JZ did not want to share an important file from his Minesweeper clone that is a standard verification for all players, and also that JZ actually met players in real life to prove his legitimacy to them. But also we cannot forget Kamil's document against JZE. Well, there is a lot to explain, and we're gonna get into it. From the unbeatable Minesweeper legend, and inspiration for many, to ignorance and isolation. This is the rise and fall of Minesweeper's greatest player, Kamil Murański. The year is 2007. The Minesweeper ranking is currently being dominated by a player named Dion2, who has been undefeated for the last 2 years. He just achieved a 36.75 expert world record, which is the first ever 37-second in-game time expert game. And it seems like his lead over others in the ranking is only going to extend even further. At this time, Minesweeper rankings were seeing a lot of newcomers who were improving at an incredible pace, so it wasn't uncommon to see a new player arrive and become a top 20 player within a year. One of them was at the time an unknown Polish player by the name of Kamil Murański, who had started playing in July 2006. He was pretty fresh to speedrunning. The concept of grinding a game was pretty new to him, so at first he only was playing around an hour daily to simply have fun. But surprisingly, he quickly improved, getting his sum of scores below 100 on January 12, 2007, after improving his expert time from 80 to 76 seconds. Your sum of scores in Minesweeper is calculated by adding up your fastest beginner, intermediate, and expert time. Somewhere around that time, Kamil founded the said rankings, which at the time were called Minesweeper.info. Kamil decided to submit his newly improved scores there and appeared on the ranking for the first time in early March of the same year. And what he did next can be only described as inhuman, as he went on the greatest improvement streak over the next upcoming years, which was not seen until that point in time. He played for more than 4 hours every day, sometimes even 10 on the weekends, just to have more time to improve over the others in the ranking. You might ask yourself, why exactly had he decided to grind out this one small Windows game and become the best at it? Well, Kamil decided that he wanted to become the best at something in life. And that something was going to be Minesweeper. And this is how he did it. He finally reached the number 1 spot on the 27th of March 2009, thanks to a stunning 4-second expert time improvement, which was also his first expert time world record, getting himself an expert game with a time of 35.70. But Kamil was not satisfied yet, and he kept pushing on. And after a small break from any personal bests, he came back, stronger than ever, setting new world records every couple of weeks. Some of them he recorded live and uploaded them to his YouTube channel to prove his legitimacy as a player. There's a big difference between claiming a score with the video replay to claiming a score with the video replay and a live camera recording, especially in a skill-based game like Minesweeper, where cheating can be performed surprisingly easily. One notable example of this is the video called Minesweeper Expert 35.711 seconds, world's fastest solve recorded with a camera, which perfectly displays how dominant and ahead of others he was at the time. In this upload, we get to see Kamil casually getting the second fastest time ever performed by another player based on the upload date, which is made even more absurd due to Kamil's reaction in the video. Or let's say the lack of it. Take a look. "12 years later, only 7 players, including Kamil, have managed to beat the score after thousands of hours of grinding. But to Kamil, this was just a nice game." Moving forward into 2011 and 2012, Kamil was mostly focusing on fixing his scores from all categories, especially the no-flag category, which was his biggest weakness due to him not being able to click faster, and just his preferred style being flags. The slow clicking was becoming a big problem for him. He was not able to achieve better scores because of the need for faster clicking speed. After his final intermediate time world record of 7.03 seconds, he started to play less with the next months and years, only getting 2 more world records after 2012, which both were in the Expert 3BVS category, the game's main clearing speed metric. Because of this, he entered the half-retired state, sometimes still doing sessions for better scores, with no bigger pressure now. He remained at the top and already exceeded all expectations, with a comfortable lead over others. Finally, after all of those years, he could just sit back and wait for a person to try to match his scores. On the 17th February 2014, a player by the name of Weijiaguo uploaded a Minesweeper video file to the Chinese Minesweeper rankings, Silei.wang, which was the first world record in 5 years not set by Kamil. A stunning no-flag expert game with a 3BVS of 4.49. Of course, celebration was mandatory, and everyone congratulated Guo on his first world record. Even Kamil responded, saying that he did a good job and he is not sure if he will ever be able to take back his record, which turned out to be true. Guo went to achieve even more expert no-flag 3BVS world records, also snatching records on intermediate no-flag 3BVS. This was the first time Kamil had been outskilled, and for a lot of people, it showed that there's hope of beating him in the future, even if it would take a lot of time. In 2015, Kamil got his crown jewel of Minesweeper achievements. He won the last organized Minesweeper World Championship in Vienna, beating others to get the status of Minesweeper World Champion, which evaded him until that moment. Following year, he decided to fully retire from Minesweeper due to becoming tired of endless grinds and reaching his limits. Who can blame him though? He was so far ahead, he essentially achieved everything there was in the game, achieving legendary status as the game's best player. With the number 1 player being out of the picture, the question of who will be next became a main topic for discussion for many players. Would it be the no-flag master Weijiaguo, the lucky yet incredibly skilled Ian Fraser, or maybe some new up-and-coming player that will come to shake up the rankings? Nobody could really pick a definitive player, since everyone was incredibly close to each other and they all had potential to be the new number 1. So 2017 rolled around, then 2018, then 2019, then came 2020. At the beginning of the year, Kamil still held a small lead over others who were competing for a spot at the top. However, their efforts were not slowing down. It was shown when 2 top players, Weijiaguo and Xianyao Zhang, individually achieved 33-second expert games. But the dethroning of Kamil wasn't done by any of them. In fact, it wasn't even the player with the second fastest expert time, Danzhou. It was someone who was making the biggest improvements ever seen so far. and that person at the beginning of the year wasn't even in the top 20. While everybody was looking at the top, one player was slowly making moves and speeding his way to the top. His name? GZE. The Chinese prodigy turned 12 in the February of the same year, and is the youngest player to achieve both sub 50 and sub 40 times on expert. He started playing in the middle of 2018, making first steps on intermediate, then exploding with his expert abilities in the middle of 2019, making his way up the Chinese and global rankings. Interesting thing about him is his mouse setup. When you have a puzzle where you can explode in just one simple click, you think about precision and safety to win the game. Most of the time when playing Minesweeper, you would want to have low DPI to maximize control over the mouse and minimize mistakes, which is something that GZ completely does not care about. His setup involves cranking up the cursor speed and keeping the option on for enhanced pointer precision. For some, those are the settings that are impossible to play on, due to the fact that you can barely move your mouse while playing, which is extremely hard for such precision-heavy speed game like Minesweeper. He decided to adapt to this way of playing, risking precision in exchange for quicker mouse movement, which has immense payoff if learned properly. Using this uncommon technique, JC went on a rampage in 2020, taking all 3BVS records away from Kamil while getting his sum of scores lower and lower. And on the 7th of July 2020, he became China #1 player after achieving an expert time of 31.62, which also made his sum of beginner, intermediate and experts best times drop below 40 seconds, and becoming the second human ever to accomplish that feat. With his next expert personal best just a month later, it was obvious that he is a serious threat to Kamil, who at this point was the fastest Minesweeper player for the past 11 years. It was expected that GCE was on the brink of beating Kamil, but nobody really knew by how much. Back in 2011, Kamil stated in an interview for a Polish magazine that a sub 30 expert time was possible if the mines were positioned correctly. This, however, would require a lot of skill and understanding of things like blind guessing, efficiency, and multi-threading, a technique to solve multiple parts of a board mentally at the same time. This altogether with a board that will have an incredibly low 3BV would potentially result in a sub 30 game. You might be wondering, what is the 3BV and 3BVS I have mentioned thus far? It stands for Bechel's Board Benchmark Value. So 3 Bs and a V. The statistic is used to determine the minimum amount of left clicks required to beat the game. Example. This beginner game can be completed in just 2 clicks. First in the middle and second in the top right section. Of course, we can take more clicks to beat this game, however the board will still have the 3BV of 2, since it's calculated on optimal play and not by our gameplay. Here is a different board that has the 3BV of 51. As you can see, it is almost entirely full with numbers. And as you can imagine, it takes way more clicks to complete than the previous 2 3BV board. So for speedruns of Minesweeper, you would want to have as low 3BV as you can get optimally. However, there are limits to 3BV. You technically can get an expert game that can finish in just 1 click, but the odds of that are beyond unlikely. Despite this, to avoid games that could potentially break the entire speedrunning rankings, the Minesweeper community decided in 2005 to put in place limits for 3BV. 2 for beginner, 30 for intermediate, and the most important for us, 100 for expert. This made all games below the limit be invalid. As long as 3BV is equal to or above the limit, it is accepted for the rankings. And for 3BVS, it's a statistic calculated by taking the 3BV of a completed game and dividing it by the time it took to finish the said game. It makes for simple statistics to measure the skill of a player, In addition, it gives sweepers an alternative category to grind for, giving variety in comparison to other speedrunning rankings. But let's get back into 3v. If we take a look at Kamil's expert personal bests, the last 4 of his scores had 3v below 120, which for most top players can indicate that they're reaching the limits of their abilities and are mostly relying on luck to get one more even better score. GZE's PBs in mid-2020 had 3v around 140, almost 30 clicks more than Kamil's best times. At that time, GZE's most recent PB, a 31.53 second game, had 3v of 160, 51 more clicks than the current record. If GZE could pull off such an incredible time on a tougher board than Kamil, what would he do if he would get a board with low 3v? Well, he would make history. 12th of September 2020. 29.43 on 133 3v. For the first time in over a decade, Kamil had been dethroned as the #1 player. The Chinese community exploded, congratulating GZE on his new world record. This also made him the first Asian Minesweeper player in over 20 years to hold the expert world record since Vincent Ye in June 2000 on a 98 3v board. Couple of hours after GZE uploaded his world record game to the rankings, a forum post was made by the creator of Minesweeper game rankings, the Finer Miner, where he described who GZE is and made the post a place to document evidence of GZE being a legitimate player. Other players joined in the discussion and gave their takes on him. Since his rise to the top was so quick, some theories like GZE is a different retired player and GZE is a Python program appeared. Both were a possibility, especially second one since it was possible that he was using some sort of external help or had unfair prior knowledge of the board, also known as UPK. One of the players who was very suspicious about the new #1 player was Kamil. At first, he only asked for GZE's stats.dat file. This particular file is a file that is a part of a cloned version of Minesweeper called MS Orbiter, mainly used for competitive play of Minesweeper. MS Orbiter is one of the only versions of Minesweeper, alongside Minesweeper X and Vienna Sweeper, that are allowed on Minesweeper game rankings due to them being heavily tested for cheats. The file gathers all games played on the Minesweeper clone and easily allows an experienced player to see inconsistencies in achieved scores. The problem is that GZE did not decide to share this file with Kamil and the rest of the community. Reasons for that are unknown, and it didn't help the suspicion around him. GZE was already asked to play on other Minesweeper clones, and ignoring providing even more evidence made his scores not be accepted on the main Minesweeper game rankings for the time until the case revolving around him was resolved with certainty. And it was true that the new #1 player is not a cheater. A week after the world record and the creation of the forum post, Kamil requested to see the recordings of GZE playing live, since the scores he was claiming to achieve almost daily were easily beating some of the best efforts of top players who have been playing for years. In a later forum post, he specified his wants, giving GZE a list of scores that he wishes to see performed live. And a month later, that's what GZE did, providing a 9-minute phone recording of himself playing intermediate, scoring an incredible intermediate score in the process. Not something Kamil really wanted, but for most of players it was enough. For the first time ever, players outside of China could see GZE playing live. Finally, we could see his incredibly high mouse DPI, as he sped his way through the games he played in the recording. A day later, he also shared a sub 40 expert game that he achieved within a couple of minutes of play, for those interested in seeing him play on the expert mode. The evidence did not stop there, as a month later, GZE recorded himself playing on Minesweeper X, and a different player sent that to the leaderboard's admin, as requested before to complete his legitimacy. As the end of the year approached, it began becoming obvious that GZE was just an incredibly talented player. As everyone was ready to put the year behind them, GZE dropped one last game of the 27th of December 2020. It was the first ever sub 30 in-game time expert in Minesweeper's history, with the time of 28.84 on 131 3BV. For old school players, breaking a 10-second barrier with in-game time is more impressive than with a regular timing method. This is because of the original version of Minesweeper, where the timer started on the first click. As soon as the first move was made, the timer switched to 1, making your true score be rounded up to the number above the score you set. So even though both 28.84 and 29.43 are scores that by the laws of time are under 30 seconds, only the 28.84 is a true Minesweeper sub 30. Because it is rounded up to 29 in-game time seconds, and 29.43 is rounded up to 30 seconds. Until this point, Kamil had not publicly accused GZE of cheating. There were signs that he wasn't very fond of the new number 1 player, but aside from having stricter requirements for GZE to prove himself, Kamil was not standing out from others in the community. That, however, changed in a now infamous forum post intended as the nail in the coffin for GZE. On the 10th of February 2021, Kamil shared with everyone this message. Here's the analysis of ZN's top 3 expert scores, plus analysis of his stats files as the support. It was very easy to spot UPK when watching replays in slow motion. Anyway, I would like to congratulate him. It was the best, almost perfect cheat attempt ever. With the post came a Word document debunking GZE's 3 fastest expert games at the time, and showed some inconsistencies in the last stats data that was provided before GZE set the world record. To the average eye, this looks like a reliable source of evidence against GZE, since Kamil has one of the biggest voices when it comes to who is a legit player due to his over a decade reign. However, this document is just a bunch of nonsense. To explain why, let's get into it fully. I did an analysis of ZNJu's top 3 expert scores by watching replays in slow motion, and there's no doubt that many times his moves show results of him using UPK. See all examples until the end. The first game that Kamil tackled was a 30.07 expert game on 146 3BV, which at the time was GZE's 3rd fastest ever expert game. Here you can see at 6.66 that the most natural way to play this is putting a flag in circled square and chord on the number 1 to open 4 squares at once. Any of the squares marked with rectangle could be a mine, so there was no clue that there's an opening there. But for some reason, he knew where exactly the only square with opening will be. GZ at the time was mostly a no flag player, though he still used flags when it was efficient to do so. He gambled on openings, since it was very silly to overuse flag abilities and waste precious time. If you don't know yet, chording into an opening has the same result as clicking the opening with left click, meaning instead of placing a flag and then pressing left and right mouse buttons, you can simply press left click once to get the same result and save time in the process. Those time losses can pile up throughout a run, and even add up to a couple of seconds if you won't have the correct approach. This is why it's sometimes better to gamble, even if very risky. Another reason for why GZE did this is shown in the image itself on the clock. The game is only 7 seconds in. If GZE would blast this game and click on a mine, he would just reset and start another game. Risking loss at the beginning is low risk and low reward. But if you're trying to dethrone that player that has been a decade on the top, you have to take anything you can get to beat him. Second example. The same situation. The most natural way to go would be to flag and immediately double click on the number 1, opening 5 surrounding squares. Any of the squares marked with the rectangle could be a mine, so there was no clue that there's an opening there. But again, ZN just knew that it's better to left the click here to open opening. The same situation in the next move. For some reason he knew there will be an opening here and didn't flag and core the 5 surrounding squares. It is believed that he is referring to himself, as although it is very common way to clear tiles here, this is not the case however for no flag players. We can even determine from the game that GZE was not ready for the opening to appear. While he clicks the opening, we can see that he moved his mouse up and even clicked, making an inaccuracy in anticipation for no opening. This is not a sign of UPK, but rather good muscle memory habits for no flag players. But also again, we see the same clock situation, as the game is only 2 seconds in, where guessing more aggressively is a common occurrence. The third example is the current expert world record. The same situation. For some reason he knew there will be opening here, and didn't flag and cored 5 surrounding squares. Same thing again. GZE is a no flag player and does not always have to go for flashy left plus right chords. The same situation. For some reason he knew there will be opening here and didn't flag and chord 4 surrounding squares. I remind you that there is no clue that there can be an opening here, because any of the marked squares with a rectangle could be a mine. This is true. What GZE did was incredibly risky trying to go for an opening this late into a game. However, making a couple of calculated guesses does not mean you are an outright cheater. This version of Minesweeper is called Freesweeper, and it allows for deeper reviews of Minesweeper games. One cool feature allows you to see openings of a board when a game is being replayed. While replaying GZ's game, we can see that in this section, GZ just felt like there might be some openings here, as seen by the first click here that did not have an opening. In all shown examples, the situation with opening hunting is different than here. In each case, ZN knew exactly where the opening is or isn't, when there was not a single thing to think so. I think he meant there was not a single piece of logic that indicated that there might be an opening here. The document continues with Kamil showing discrepancies in dates when GZE set his scores. This is the only part of the doc that is in a way reasonable. Kamil shows here 2 examples of GZE achieving impossible scores in the matter of minutes. It seems that on 12th of October, it took him 21 minutes to win, 32.67, 40.2, 35.35, 36.02, 37.39, 38.9, with good 3VS, which is obviously impossible. These accusations are perfectly understandable, because the time it took GZE to get mentioned scores feels unreal. 5 sub 40 games in 21 minutes is simply mind-blowing. Just one sub 40 demands high precision, game knowledge, and great speed from a player. All of that 5 times in just 21 minutes felt reasonably impossible to achieve. You can either guess a lot and win 1 game per hour to get better scores, or slow down and win more games, but with much worse time. Kamil again uses his example as the standard for how top players should achieve their scores. It is true that setting so many amazing scores in a very short time period might feel impossible. The truth is that it's actually possible. It's just very fucking hard. And this is int and F stats. He was getting normal scores and suddenly got superpowers, getting 6.24 and 6.18 no flag 3BV scores within only 2 minutes. In this case, GZE simply encountered 2 very good boards in a short period of time, and capitalized on them, achieving 2 mind-blowing scores. There isn't much more to add about this. Sometimes you simply get lucky in Minesweeper and get good boards as a reward for being a consistent player. Minesweeper is a luck game after all. The document closes up with Kamil stating that JZE uses UPK and a bot to play for him, since playing for high win rate and speed at the same time is impossible in his opinion. For some, this document was a bit confusing, since not only Kamil decided to attack JZE while he was continuing to provide evidence, he did so while shutting himself away from other opinions. The accusation against JZE was the last forum post Kamil has made on the Minesweeper game forum as of making of this video. After more than 12 years of being semi-active there, that was the last public post of Kamil Saper. After the accusation post, members still continued to discuss JZE. Meanwhile, his games on another verified Minesweeper clone, Minesweeper, had been uploaded to the forums. But still, one thing remained requested of JZE, the stats dat file. For unknown reasons, he was avoiding sharing it, which caused large suspicion because if JZE truly cheated, it would be easily visible in the file. That's why, for Kamil and others, it became the #1 argument against JZE becoming #1. Finally, on the 11th of May 2021, after waiting for more than half a year, the file was shared. And after a verification process made by the site admin, JZE finally had been accepted as the new #1 player, and all of his current and former world records were finally added to the world record history list. This was not received well by Kamil, who still believed that foul play was taking place, and JZE managed to persuade everyone. Because of that, he proceeded to block all of his Minesweeper contacts that were believing that JZE is a legit player. A list of blocked users also included the Minesweeper rankings admin himself, who he had known for more than a decade by this point. Kamil did that to try to stop the information about JZE becoming the new best player for one reason or another. That turned out to be unsuccessful because of one video.
Hello, you absolute legends. Good old Minesweeper.
In October 2021, popular speedrunning content creator Carl Jobst released a video titled 12-year-old kid destroys Minesweeper's oldest world record. It explained very professionally basic Minesweeper concepts like cording and 3BV, while briefly bringing up the history of Minesweeper expert world records. The main topic of the video was who JZE actually is, and Kamil's doubts about the validity of JZE as a player. Because of this, many got to see JZE playing live on camera for the first time. Since 2 months before the video's release, the new champion met up with another player and recorded some videos of himself playing Minesweeper and other puzzle games that he excels at. Carl's video was warmly welcomed by the community and received a lot of attention, garnering over 900,000 views, bringing many eyes not only to JZE and his situation with Kamil, but to Minesweeper as a whole. You might be wondering, why are we talking so much about JZE if this video is about Kamil? The answer is simple. You can't talk about Goliath without explaining David. 2021 was not over yet. With JZE beating him, the door was opened for others to do the same. During the 9th edition of an online Minesweeper tournament called Golden Sheep Cup, 2 more players managed to break through. First of them was Jia Chen, with his incredible 9.85 beginner 3BVS game. A day later, another player known as LMX announced that he too had beaten Kamil in an immaculate expert game with a time of 30.17. Why are those games more important than the other times the former #1 got beaten? Well, it comes down to how he responded to them. You might remember that when Veja Guo beat him in 2014, he simply accepted him as better. However, the times had changed. After LMX's expert game, the description of Kamil's former expert world record was changed to mention the fact that this is now a former world record. However, still leaving the title of the video as Minesweeper world record. One comment suggested that Kamil should also update the title to avoid causing confusion. To that, Kamil responded in perhaps one of the most goofy ways he could. The title is correct according to the convention I have adopted. You can find extra info in the description. Basically saying that the title of the video is correct in his mind, and that the rankings that he was champion of for the past decade essentially mean nothing to him. And if you beat him, and you're from China, and are suspicious in his eyes, you simply have not beaten him. It's that simple. At that time, there was no player with better scores than Kamil that was not from China. The top rankings were just one Polish player surrounded by the sea of Chinese players. Eventually, there had to come a non-Chinese player that would find success in also beating Kamil. And how fitting would it be if that player was from Poland? Well, that person was me. On the 11th of October 2022, I managed to set the second best ever beginner 3BVS, beating Kamil's best beginner 3BVS of 9.62, with the second ever beginner game above 10 3BVS, with the score of 10.31. After the second ever 3BVS above 10, everyone was waiting for any reaction from Kamil, and possible remarks he might have about the game. The response came in the form of a video uploaded to his YouTube channel, titled Minesweeper Beginner 3BVS World Record 9.62, with the description explaining that this is a world record that has been standing now for over 11 years. This was simply absurd, since at this point, 5 people had better scores than him. If you go to the video today, you will see that the description had been changed. However, through the first couple of months of the video's release, it stated that there are no better games than this one. And it's not that he did this by a mistake. Kamil had to input the date of the record's legacy into description himself. If he perhaps said that maybe he didn't know that there are others that beat him, well, why did the former best player not check the rankings to verify if anyone had beat him? Well, the answer is simple. Kamil just can't accept others beating him. There is no clear reason for this. It might have to deal with him being salty that GZE beat him, or that he can't catch up anymore due to him not being in his prime anymore. Kamil started in the late 2000s as one of many who were going for Dion's #1 spot on the rankings, and throughout 2010s was perhaps one of the best speedrunners in the entire world. He with others helped to build and shape the community that now thrives with thousands of players playing every day. The same community he decided to turn against. Many players basically grew their Minesweeper skills watching old Kamil games, and seeing their idol lie about the rankings he once represented and essentially gave value to over the years is truly heartbreaking. The only thing we can hope for now is that one day Kamil returns to the community he once had home in, and gives one more attempt at the world record, just like in the old days. Who knows? Minesweeper is Minesweeper after all. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it took me a bit of time, but here we are. If you managed to get to this point in the video, I would be very happy if you could help by liking and subscribing. It would be fun to make more videos like this. Also, sincere thank you to everyone who has helped me with this video in any shape or form. I very much hope to see you soon.